Hello and welcome back to IMTS Spark, the What's New and What Works in Mold Manufacturing series presented by Mold Making Technology. I am Christina Fuchs, Editorial Director with Mold Making Technology.
And I'm Ryan Delahanty, publisher of Mold Making Technology magazine.
Hello, Ryan.
How are you? Good to see you again.
Good. You too. All right. For those not familiar with mold making technology, we've been addressing the complete life cycle of a mold by providing content that shares solutions and strategies for anyone who designs, builds, maintains, repairs, and manages molds. We have a print, digital, and social presence, so be sure to check us out. And I suggest beginning at moldmakingtechnology.com.
Very good, Christina. Christina, this is our fifth of 6 sessions presented by Mold Making Technology that'll take place between now through the end of March. So be sure to check out IMTS Spark for a full lineup and get access to the live stream events. Throughout this series, Christina and I have virtually sit down with several guests who are focusing on mold making, and we'll discuss some of the industry hot topics, trends, challenges, and anything else along the way.
That's right. And today's session is all about best practices for improving efficiencies. And who doesn't like that title, right? So mold making technology.
Captured me.
I know, right? We have been featuring, since we started, mold builders who are doing amazing things when it comes to customer service and satisfaction, workforce development, improving the industry, business growth, and even deploying technology. So a while back, we brought together a panel of mold builders and we recorded a conversation about tips and ideas on ways to improve efficiencies with regards to technology, their employees, and business management. So I think our guests in that panel discussion back then, which is connected to Amerimold Connects, were Don DeMullen, the CEO of Precise Tooling Solutions, Carl Jacobson, M&M Tool and Mold, Brian Dipple, the operations manager at Excel Tool and Mold, Mark Rotman of Ameritech Die and Mold, and Tim Galbraith of Cavalier Tool and Manufacturing. So we're going to start this session off by playing just a portion of that conversation, and then we'll come back with 2 of the participating mold builders live to get an update and dig a little bit deeper into some of the other challenges and trends. So let's let this video roll. Okay. Are you guys, gentlemen, are you ready?
We are.
All right.
Ready.
I will start. Actually, I'm going to start with Don because he's our lead time leader, so I have to do that.
Well,
so Don, question number 1. How do you create and maintain an employee-centered culture?
Well, for me, employee-centered culture is all about transparency. If you read the article that Christine and team wrote in the magazine about our award, it focuses on our people, and because I think that's the key piece of the organization, and I think the best way to do that is to share everything. So every quarter we get the entire team together, and I walk through every line of the financial statement. They understand what our book of business looks like. They understand how busy we're going to be. They understand what customer requests are. And I think that helps people buy in, not only to the workload that's there, but also to the end goal of the company, which is growth and profitability.
All right, let's go on over to Carl.
Well, we work very heavily with employee involvement in the process so that the employees are involved in the preliminary design reviews. If they've got suggestions or ideas that they'd like to try in the tool, as long as it fits, we'll let them have some ownership of the project that way. We also follow the accountability. Each employee or lead tool maker on a job has the ability in basic real time, basically 24 hours delayed, to find out how much has been spent of their budget on the tool, as far as buyouts and as far as hours that are charged to their jobs.
All right, how about you, Brian?
Basically the same philosophy with keeping the employees informed. I like to manage by walking around, talking to everybody pretty much every morning, say good morning to everybody. You get that cup of coffee and just see how things are going throughout the shop. And then we also, on a little bigger scale, is we have, monthly, at least try to have them monthly meetings with everybody. And we just block off a section of the shop and try to keep it quiet. I mean, there's lots of machines running, but we talk about things like new orders, and what's forecast out there that we think we're going to get, so they can kind of plan vacations or even summers or winter vacations. Just basically keep everybody involved. The guy that's out there running that service grinder 8, 10, 12 hours a day isn't knowing what's going to happen 2 weeks after he's done grinding all these components. So we like them to have a sense of ownership with some things, and where their things are, their lives are headed for the next month, 2 or 3, if it can get out that far.
All right, Mark, how about you at Ameritech?
I think for us, there's 2 things that really stand out, and the first one is servant leadership. So we want to make sure that management understands it's their responsibility to make sure that employees have everything they need to be successful. If they don't have the right tools in their hands, then we can't expect them to be successful with what they've been given. So that's probably the first thing. And the second thing is making sure that everyone has a voice, no matter how much or how little experience they may have. We find that new ideas can come from a fresh set of eyes.
I like that. How about you, Tim, over at Cavalier?
Yeah, I think the guys have covered pretty much everything. Whoa, I'm glitching here. The 2 things, very much so, communications is essential, and transparency up and down the path is good. Much like what Mark said, every decision that the management team takes on must consider the impact on the employees, and they're not always great for every employee, but you need to have a culture that considers those impacts when you're making the decision, and then disseminate that, make sure everybody understands why you made the decisions, whether they like them or not, and listen to what they have to say. Agreed all around.
Got it. Yeah, I agree. Culture, communication, and transparency, I think obviously are all the main themes there. All right, number 2. And now training's huge, and especially actually during all this COVID crisis, the focus on training, whether in downtime, whether because it's necessary, cross-training, it's even been amped up a little bit. So in your shops, and we'll start again with Don, what is the key to your training strategy, and who within the organization champions that?
Great question, Christina. Josh Jeffries, who's head of our manufacturing organization, has responsibility for training across the organization. But I think with many small companies, our training philosophy is really hands-on. Our folks are paired, our young people are paired with more senior people, and they learn on the job. We don't have the luxury of, putting people in classrooms for weeks at a time, because everybody on our team is a productive part of the group. So the vast majority of our training is on job, on a project, and learning by doing.
Got it. Carl.
Our training strategy here is maybe a little bit different, but we run a pull-oriented training strategy so that the employees know where they need to go to move up to the next level, and they request the training when it fits their schedule. I know if you've got a new baby or something like that, you may not be as interested in attending training right then as other times, but then the employee champions their own training. When we train internal, we use internal trainer, and we find that both people really learn something as far as the trainer-trainee relationship. When we do need new system training or something that's across the board, we generally try and run it as a lunch and learn session. M&M Tool will provide a pizza lunch or something like that, and we get together and run through the training.
I like that. It's an interesting perspective. How about you, Brian?
Our training in terms of training new tool makers or new designers, we've actually worked with the state of Pennsylvania to, I don't want to say rewrite, but let's say tailor the apprenticeship program more towards our needs with the types of equipment that we use and the type of operations that the people will be performing. And we've worked with them pretty closely, and it's actually beginning to pay dividend because it's actually happening out on the floor now, where we're using our own criteria to train our guys. And when they are done, they will get a state-issued apprenticeship card. There are other internal training things with, new hires and that type of thing. And across the board, we'll do a lunch and learn or something with some other types of things. But we also work with the NWPA for like 5S or something like that.
Okay.
We'll work with them directly, or even things about, quality management systems. Used them for that in the past too.
It's exciting to hear when you guys won Lead Time Leader in 2018, talking to Jim, how Jim Cummings was all about that curriculum. So to see that actually happening on the floor, that's exciting.
Absolutely.
How about you, Mark, over at Ameritech?
Yeah, so we like to put a focus on training why instead of just how. So we find that it's really important, as we're bringing in young apprentices, to teach them, troubleshoot with a why mentality instead of just by the books, do step 1, step 2, step 3, and do it in kind of a how. So I know you need a little bit of both, but it's really important if you can do some why, then they find it easier to troubleshoot things later on down the road. And
well, it's good to ask questions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and as far as who champions this effort, so we have a pool of knowledge that comes from everyone over many years of experience. And what we found is not everybody is a gifted teacher. So we've kind of championed a few of our employees that do have a gift of teaching, and they're able to explain concepts and kind of work with students or apprentices, young employees to get them the training they need. But so we have a few employees that are also championed with investigating new procedures, new ways to do things. So we really put it on them to try and figure out, is this the best process? Then it enters into the pool of training, and then it gets handed to the mentors that will pass it on to the new employees.
I like how you used the word mentor. That was something I'm going to bring up later. Tim, how about you over at Cavalier?
We, Christian, as you know, we subscribe to a number of different methods of training, and training was an HR function for a long time, but actually all of the management team and all the people at Cavalier play a role in HR. So we're all challenged and charged with knowing the needs of our team members and planning training for that. And to that end, we use training as an incentive. If you show that you're willing to work extra and you're that guy doing the extra, we'll say, would you like to go for Dale Carnegie training? And the Dale Carnegie course for us has been a great reward type of training for employees that go above and beyond. The management team has gone for, we called it sensitivity training, but management training on how to deal with millennials and the new generation of workers coming in. But it's important to everybody everybody sees what training does for the company, and it goes across the board, not just technical training.
Excellent. All right. You guys are moving right along. I'm very proud. All right. Number 3. And this is countering. I need 3 answers from each of you. So what are your top, we'll start with Carl this time. What are your top 3 best technology investments or recommendations, and why?
Well, we added a dedicated QC lab with a dedicated CMM machine. Gives us the ability to document critical steel prior to shipping, as well as document grooming changes that are required and measure steel before and after. Our second one is an electrode machining and inspection cell, also with an integrated CMM. We confirm each electrode meets inspections. We don't waste time cutting a full set of electrodes. If you need 10 of one, if number 1 fails, it stops there and moves on to the next set of electrodes. Our operator there has remote monitoring capabilities, so he can run it from home with lights out here at work. But we did leave a visual inspection step to move electrodes into the tool changers on the EDM machines, just to make sure there's no chip in the corner or defect that's not on an inspection point on the CMM. Our third major one is we brought an in-house laser welder. Our past deal had been driving to Milwaukee 100 miles away in a 2-hour trip to go to a full steel laser welder and back. So if you had an ECN or repair job, it allowed us to drastically reduce the lead time that we needed to do that by being able to bring that in-house.
Nice. All right, over to you, Brian.
I have to say it's the Yazda hard mills that we bought.
I knew you were going to say that.
I think everybody would know that by now. We actually have a little cell going with them, but they are extremely accurate and fast. And we used the H out of them, I'll say. It's It beats running an EDM, I'll say that. And then I have to say the next thing is you have to think about robotics and palletization and that type of thing for automation, because if you're not thinking in automation, you're not going to be around for very long. You really need to grab as many hours out of that day as you can. So it's not only the time that you're running, but it's also important to monitor the time that you're not running. So what's happening in the background to prepare for the next operation or the next job, and have that ready for yourself when the last job ends. And that time it takes to tear down and set up is important as well. And then I think software is important. I wanted to mention that, but the next technology investment, the third one, would be our CMM in quality. We have a new Zeiss, and we have the right guy running it, and he's actually reduced the number of people that we need in quality to get the job done. So kudos to John, doing very well. And it even the tool makers out on the floor have more trust with his measurement. Every tool maker, you measured it, oh, it's too big, it's too small, whatever. Yeah. They all have to measure it themselves. But when John raises a flag, then certainly it raises everyone's eyebrows. Say, we need to double check these things. So yeah, it's nice. Good step.
How about you, Don?
Yeah, so Christina, our three biggest probably productivity improvement investments over the past 6 or 7 years have been, two of them have been software related. The first is our ERP system, which allows us to have one record of everything that we're doing in the shop. And you know, that has saved us a massive amount of time and gets us the best records possible. The second software is our relationship management software that we use with all our customers. It's a product called HubSpot. And we use that for all our data, all our communication, all our quotes, everything that goes to customers. So we're able to do that. But then on a machining standpoint, you know, we spent close to $1 million a couple of years ago buying a 5-axis rotor, which is the Lamborghini of CNC machines, if you will. And
nice shout out.
Yeah, well, right. That has been a remarkable a tool for especially for our lighting customers.
I'll have to mention, if anybody wants to dig a little deeper with what precise, I mean, the whole HubSpot, the ERP, go to moldmakingtechnology.com, watch those videos and the June issue cover story to dig a little deeper in what they're all about. So
it'll give you a good nap too.
Come on, hey, don't say that. I was part of telling that story. Don't say that. So how about over to Mark?
So probably our best three technology investments would be first 5-axis machine tools. And while I think everyone here has kind of mentioned that, it's kind of the low-hanging fruit. Just our ability to reduce setups and to reach areas in a cavity that would traditionally need, you know, tool extensions. You know, it's helped with rigidity. It's helped us reach things that we would typically need to put in an EDM. So 5-axis machine tools have really changed, you know, the workplace environment. The second would be mold filling simulation software. And while a lot of companies may already have that in place, we were kind of late to the game in implementing that internally here. But we found that it really helps with the mold design process and identifying pitfalls or possible issues before they even have a chance to pop up. So we've really started to utilize it for, you know, making sure that our mold cooling is good. You know, we've got vents in the right locations. You know, we've got you know, we're looking for areas of gas trap, things like that. So it's beyond just worrying about where to put the gate or is the part going to fill out, but trying to dig in deeper. The third one would be our apprenticeship. So, you know, that is an investment. It takes a lot of time and effort and resources to run an apprenticeship program. But at the end of the day, we find that talent is probably the hardest resource for us to come by. You know, anyone can go out and buy a machine tool. Anyone can go out, you know, obviously you have to have the cash for it, but anyone can go out and buy it, and it's an equal playing field. But for us to be able to develop the employees that we need in-house to be able to actually perform the work, you know, to find that just every, you know, putting out, you know, job postings or, you know, looking for existing talent, it's very challenging. So by growing it internally, we're able to cultivate, you know, what we need in-house.
Yeah, fair enough. And I know that Cavalier can relate to that. Their people, process, and technology. Is that what your tagline is? So,
yeah, people,
yeah,
process,
equipment.
yeah.
So that's a perfect segue to your
Yeah.
top 3 technology investments.
You know, Christina, how much we love Brian and the team love our 5-axis and our sophisticated equipment. But much like Don, I think I'm going to call out our ERP system. And we did a re-implementation of our ERP system, putting through a couple hundred jobs a year and in 2 continents. We had a massive data that we just couldn't wrap our heads around, and we weren't using it effectively. And we found by re-implementing the ERP system and having an interface written that allows access to the internal data that we had has gone a long way to allow us to drill down in our processes and improve our efficiency. So probably that's the number one thing that it's terribly non-sexy, but it's really a great tool. Another one is our simulation software. Our design department runs all of our tooling through their simulation software, both mold, fill, and actual running the tool as well, looking for crashes, looking for any possible interferences, looking for demolding issues. And some of the things that we found at that stage have gone a long way to saying, oops, we would have got to the press and we wouldn't have realized that. So again, software and managing data. And automation, of course, is a big one, would be our third one, automating Electrode's manufacture, palletization, multi-pallet, 5-axis CNC machines and stuff. That's the sexy stuff that we've taken a big advantage of and has helped us a lot.
Great. That's all good stuff. The simulation end of things always amazes me nowadays. I know there's an investment there and maybe even a learning curve, but the stories I hear about just what that can save you in the end, it seems like a no-brainer to me, but there's a journey for some shops to get on board for that. And it's just interesting. Like once you have it, I think you're like, whoa, why haven't we done that before? Right? So that ties nicely into the next question, which, technology is a big part of process too, obviously. So we'll start with Mark this time. What is your latest, and maybe COVID even impacted this, I don't know. What is your latest process improvement?
Our latest process improvement has been scheduling. So we've recently updated to an online scheduling software, and it's really improved communication and our ability to be thorough on, as we work on jobs.
That's a good one. And again, were you impacted with COVID? Was Ameritech part of these jobs coming in where that would have been scheduling and communication is essential during this time?
Yeah, absolutely. We saw a lot of quick turnaround mold requirements for things that would help the health industry with COVID. So yeah, it was very beneficial to keep real time up to date where we were on everything and making sure everything's fit and that we were able to meet some really tight deliveries.
That's awesome. How about you, Brian? Latest process improvement?
It's not a very, I'll use Tim's analogy here. It's not a very sexy thing.
You guys are sexy.
We've gone through some serious investment in the last 3 years with a building addition and taking on a bunch of new equipment. But we're actually looking at putting robots on things that we normally weren't thinking about. And so it's not as sexy, but still, it's really cool stuff.
Aren't robots sexy? I mean, that's automation. I would consider that falling under the sexy category in a shop.
Yeah, I guess it could be considered. Yeah.
Is it on the molding side? Like where are you considering these robots?
No, the robots are on the tooling side.
On the tooling side.
Lathe. Yep. We're putting on lathes, and we have a 5-axis stuff for soft milling, and we're looking at putting robots on that as well.
Excellent. All right, Cara, how about over to you?
Okay, we're right in the middle of implementing an E2 ERP system. Our ownership group also owns 2 additional shops, and we're going to do cloud-based so that I can see where I've got additional spindle time in any of these other shops. I guess I'm going to say the jury's still out on that one yet. We have had some fantastic reports that we have built and developed ourselves, and we're still trying to figure out how to get a replacement report out of the system. We're basically just past the crawl stage on the implementation, figuring we're going to go crawl, walk, run. So we'll have to check back on that one and see exactly where it is and how it comes out once we start running.
It's not feeling sexy right now, is it?
No.
All right, how about over to Tim?
The one sexy thing, or maybe it is, an ASRS system that we put in, and it's an automated storage and retrieval system, so that we amalgamated all of our stores throughout the building, and it's automated in a vertical storage. And we also, right next to it, we have our job boxes as well in a vertical storage, so they're not taking floor space. So they're pre-populated out of the inventory. So when the tools come to the assembly stage, the toolmaker just comes in and requests his job box, and it comes fully stocked. So that was a pretty cool get, as opposed to running around to the different storage facilities and culling that. So that's been a really big get for us. And one of the interesting things is the work from home protocol that COVID has introduced. We were, and I don't know about the rest of you guys, but as a tool shop, you're always pretty proprietary about your people's time and making sure they come to work on time and put as many 55-hour weeks in a year as they can. But it's surprising. I'm getting emails in the middle of the night and early in the morning, and reports from my guys and my team, and we're more productive working from home than we were working from the office, and everybody's happy. So yeah, that was a real big surprise and a good get from the COVID thing.
Interesting. All right, Don, your turn.
Well, I think our biggest is tying all our systems together. We use also E2 for our ERP system, and getting that to work with HubSpot, and our ability to track a quote throughout the system, get it into the E2, and then track the financial impact, I think has probably been our biggest opportunity and change.
That was a fun panel. We had so much insight very quickly, wouldn't you say?
Yes. Make sure I'm not unmuted. Okay, good. 1 year in, I figured that out. Yeah,
good
great.
For you, Ryan.
Great. Yeah, figured it out. It's only taken me a year. No, it was great. I mean, I was sitting there as I was listening. I was kind of remancing back to that actual call. I loved it. Thoughts on the word sexy.
I know. I forgot about that too. But mold making is sexy. All right. With that in mind, let's bring on our two mold builders that were courageous enough to come back and continue this conversation. We have Tim Galbraith with Cavalier Tool Manufacturing and Carl Jacobson with M&M Tool and Mold. Hello, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
All right, so Tim, why don't you start, since the portion that we played didn't introduce you? Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Cavalier?
Sure. First of all, as you can probably see, I've upgraded the camera, so I won't be glitching so much as I was there. The Wi-Fi from home wasn't what it is from work here, now that I'm in my office. Anyway, my name is Tim Galbraith, as you see on the screen, and I work at Cavalier Tool and Manufacturing. I'm responsible for the sales, program management, and estimating, as well as one of the senior management team here. We are located in Windsor, Ontario. We have 2 locations as of this year in Windsor, Ontario. We bought another one to join our family. Plus we have 2, I can say this, I'm letting the cat out of the bag, 2 locations in India. Next Monday, we'll be opening up our second office in India as well, in Lucknow. And so we're in Chennai and Lucknow. We've got over 200 team members, 88,000 square feet, and 24/7 operation.
Tim, any specialty markets you guys focus on, or
we are the redheaded stepchild of the mold industry. We don't focus on a single market. We are pretty broad reaching in at least 5 different markets at any given time. And that's intentional in order for us to not have mitigated ups and downs. And my computer just came on with a low battery warning, so I'm going to switch off my headphones.
Okay, well, good timing. Good segue into Carl. Carl, while Tim's getting his power supply back up, maybe tell us a little bit about you, about your company, maybe location, size, end markets, any other tidbits to introduce to our audience.
Well, I'm Carl Jacobson. I'm the estimator and tooling engineer at M&M Tool and Mold. M&M is a 24-man shop located in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Also, we don't deal with a specific market. We try and keep ourselves broad-based, and we're pretty general. Plastic injection molding, some LSR injection molding, some zinc die cast tooling. Try and stay in as many areas as we can just to keep avenues open.
Diversification, that is the key, right? Especially the past year, I would say that was a very good asset to a lot of shops. So it's been, believe it or not, it has been almost 9 months since that first conversation. 9 months. We could have had a baby. In 9 months. So first, let's start with Carl. I have particular questions, but I want to know, there are things that I don't know. What has transpired since that conversation? Like any major news or any updates since that first conversation?
We're still struggling with the ERP system, mightily.
Mightily. Did you ever connect with Don over at Precise?
I got pulled off that by our general manager, who said he was going to connect with Don, and it's on his whiteboard with a list of questions underneath it, but he doesn't think he has the whole list to connect yet, so he has not.
What are some of the stumbling blocks with it?
Well, trying to come back with reports similar to or containing the same information as what we had developed prior to that. One, two, everybody goes into a system like this thinking, oh, I need 7 scanners in the shop. And all of a sudden you have to get to realize, no, everybody has to have a scanner right at their, most of our tool makers have a laptop on their roller cart. So wherever they are, they have a scanner. Instead of walking to 25 feet to get to a scanner, to get to a list of codes to scan in and off a job. We're still struggling with functions that happen outside of our building and getting time recorded for that. We have our own truck and a driver, and when they're on a trip, they're charging time to all 4 jobs that are on the trip because they log into them all. And just, then you have to go back and interpret that as far as how much time should be charged to which job. And if I get a report out of that, it shows that each job had the 6-hour trip charged to it for me to quote compare against. So it's just hard to get it rationalized and in a meaningful format to review.
You're not alone in that. That is a common challenge within mold manufacturing. And I know, Tim, you mentioned in the video, Cavalier, you're not an E2 customer, are you?
You're not.
It's not E2. So do you have any advice in terms of the Cavalier's journey? I know the companies are rather different in terms of scope, but any advice?
Can you hear me okay? I switched microphone up? Okay,
Yep.
perfect. The advice, don't give up, because I'll be honest with you, we've been doing it 1.5 years, almost 2 years, and we're still not to the end. Every time, Carl, I understand exactly where you're coming from, because the flow charts look so easy. And then when it comes to actually implementation, then you find out there are 2 tools on there, both of them logged on the trip. That's what's in the flow chart. But eventually, and we're knocking them off one by one, all the things that come up, and it's a huge get reaching the end, and we're getting really close right now. So, yeah, and it's an important part of any company going forward. They need to have a good ERP system.
Absolutely. So, Carl, is there anything? Tell me something positive in the past 9 months.
Well, we're expecting delivery on new Synchro EDM, new Electrode machine here shortly. We've gotten the power built up in that portion of the shop. Everything is basically ready. We're waiting on some conversion. This is a new to us machine. It was a couple years old. That had maybe 400 hours on it, but it had a different set of electrode holders. So getting the drawbars and the robotics to go to our storage cells converted to what we're using from what was on the machine is there.
Technology is good.
Have come through COVID very well at the shop. Had a few guys with issues, but nothing that shut us down. We've been busy all the way through it. So
Good.
That's great. That's great. Tim, I know Cavalier, and the only reason I know this, which is a good thing, is you are very active across social media and digitally. So there's been a lot of activity on that space in regards to growth of Cavalier. So one is Mold Services International. Can you talk a little bit about that acquisition, shall we call it, right?
Sure. Last year, we had a phenomenal increase in sales. I would like to say it was caused by COVID. It wasn't. It is just a culmination of about 5 years of astute planning on Brian's behalf and the team's behalf here, and all things came together for us. So we had a really good year. Because of that, we were really heavy on the outsource. We always keep a regular team of outsourced partners that we use. We realized halfway through the year that this was not a flash in the pan. This was going to be the new normal for us, and decided to do something about it. And we had talks with MSI years gone by. They are very, very light cavalier in their management thoughts. They're people-oriented management style, and the style of tooling and the equipment they have. So we proposed a merger, and the two gentlemen that owned it said this is a great opportunity for them to move on to the next stage of their lives, although we don't want to let them go. And on January 1st, we announced that they joined the Cavalier family, and that has given us an instant 25% increase in our business capacity.
Wow.
So we're well positioned for 2021 to have another good year.
That's fantastic. And I also notice you're running ads and are hiring. So is there anything in particular? Like what is spurring that? Is that part of it, this acquisition, or talk about that?
We've just got enough business, and we expect this year to continue, that we need key team members to join. We're always on the lookout for good talent. And as Brian says, we don't want just the right people. We want them on the right seats on that bus when they come on board. And if we find someone who's a key player, can be a key player, we'll make room for them. And when we grow into them, then they become a valuable team member to us. And that kind of mentality goes a long way in the shop. But we're looking for designers. We're looking for tool makers and machinists and clerical office staff. We're looking for people across the board right now.
That's great. How about the India venture? So when the last time I talked to you about that, it was a while. It was you were just doing the initial, right? Cavalier India. Is it called Cavalier India?
CTI, Cavalier
That's
Tool
right.
India. Yeah.
So talk about that. How you're opening a second office.
It's actually really taken off well. And this is one of the results of COVID, Christina, is that India was hit pretty hard and everybody had to go home. It wasn't quite as simple with the infrastructure over there as it was in North America, but we still worked out really well. When it came time to come back to work, we had a lot of people who came from across the country to join our team. Working for a North American shop is an opportunity for people. They wanted to go back home, and we said, you know what, we've been working remotely for a while. Why don't we open satellite offices? That way we're not draining talent from one particular area, but we've got a couple of areas. So we've got more planned, and we opened up our second one, as I said, on Monday, which actually the building is occupied, and the offices are all ready, the infrastructure's in, and on Monday they're going to report to work, and we're going to have a second office in Northern India. It's just been a real wonderful thing for Cavalier Tool.
That's exciting. And the whole mission of that was the design and engineering side of the process, correct?
That's what started it. We could not hire enough people over here to, that was our bottleneck. And our growth was limited by the number of designers we had. And we were farming out work to anybody anywhere. We had work in Brazil and all over the US and Canada and a little bit in Europe. And we sat down and said, let's open up in India because there's plenty of opportunity there. One of the more recent developments is now we're running 2 shifts in India. So with the cloud-based computing and design capabilities, we can have 2 people working on a tool at the same time because it's cloud-based. The same way you do with a living document on Google Docs or SharePoint. So we've got actual designing 28 hours every day. People are designing on molds.
Wow.
So again, it's just we're trying to get lead time shortened and trying to maximize throughput and
taking advantage of the time difference, right? That's huge.
Yeah, we always ask how can we add an hour to the day? You figured out how to add 4 hours to the day. That's pretty amazing.
That is. So before I pass this off to Ryan, I think a couple of you in the video recording mentioned during COVID you were surprised, impressed at the productivity of people when you had to work remotely. Can you both still speak to that? Is that how did that unfold in the past 9 months? Carl?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you can see from the background, I am still working from home.
I see that.
What I've missed about that is I used to have a 20-minute commute time that I could organize my day, and a 20-minute commute on the way home where I could compartmentalize what I was doing and file it away to start the next morning. Unfortunately, it doesn't take me nearly that long to get from so I've lost that.
Thank God.
A slow walker to your office there.
Right. But I think it's been working well for the people that we've been able to let work from home. And really, we've had, during the height of this, 3 people working from home. They have a tendency to start earlier and probably stay later since it's here in the base, downstairs of the home. But I think the productivity has been there every bit as much. The training, one of the others is an estimator in training.
Ooh.
Gets more difficult.
Yes.
Trying to make sure that you don't stray from the path and get on a team viewer or a Teams meeting and discuss before you go all the way down a path and then have to back way up.
Yeah. Ryan and I can relate to that in terms of COVID too, even in the publishing world. The amount of people that started with us that don't even know that we never met them in person yet. I feel like I know them because of all these virtual platforms you can use, but that's got to be a tough way to start a career, start a job.
That's a credit. Just to talk a little bit, Carl, the way, like, it's just a credit on both sides. I mean, both people, and I think in that situation are, it's not ideal, but if you've got 2 willing parties and they're trying to keep their communication channels open as possible and recognizing that the tools are the best thing you've got right now, it tends to be okay. And at least that's what we found. Sounds like you're finding something similar.
Yes.
Yep. How about you, Tim?
We still have our entire design department working from home. It worked out very, very well. And I was watching my performance earlier and I talked about the hours. Sometimes you can't reach them at 10 o'clock in the morning. They're doing something, and we allow that flexibility as long as the throughput that they do is equal to or greater than what they were doing here. And to a person, it's worked out really well. They're very happy about it. The downside is the personal interaction. You miss the day-to-day personal interaction. Quite frankly, that's why I'm here. We're almost deserted upstairs, but there's 3 of us. Brian, Brenda, and I are upstairs, and we get to see each other each day. But all the program managers, basically, they come in to check on their tools, or they're at trial, or they're working from home. It's worked out really, really well. Teams is our backstop. We're on Teams constantly, and the little green dot that you watch for, and I go close down at night, and I can see 4 or 5 guys got the green dots going, and I know they're still at it. And it's really been the best of both worlds for a lot of people. I miss seeing everybody on a day-to-day basis, but it's opened our eyes. I've hired a gentleman in Mexico City to work for us. Hired a gentleman in Ohio. We're advertising for designers all over the U.S. You can work remotely. You don't need to report to work anymore.
So that's your new strategy. Is that an actual?
It is. We advertise remote positions available, so you don't have to come to work at Cavalier. If you live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, or Tucson, Arizona, and you're a mold designer and you can work in UG and meet the criteria needed, we'll onboard you. You don't need to be here. It's really been an opportunity for us.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Hey, Christina, I wanted to go back. I mean, we couldn't show the whole 1-hour session that video was part of. There were a few questions that were inside the video that I'd like to just ask both Carl and Tim. And Carl or Tim, you just touched on it with your throughput comment. So maybe we'll start with you and then we'll go to Carl. But how do you measure success within the shop, within the operation? Are there 1 or 2 like big success markers that your company looks at or you look at? And then maybe talk a little bit about those.
That's a really good question, and obviously, being a child of Keynesian economics, the big marker is profit, and you've got to be profitable. But being profitable is not the ultimate metric by which to measure a company. We've come a long way, and we realize that employee satisfaction, good work environment. There are a lot of minor metrics that we measure by turnover. Sick calls. We look at that kind of thing for how happy our teammates are. We also give each department their own set of metrics with which to govern themselves by and report back to the management team at the end of the year. throughput time in design. How many hours of the tool build were you till your completed design? Spindle utilization. There's targets for every single one of our spindles. We monitor that. Machining department has to know that. Every department, every group of people have their own metrics to monitor by which they report to the overall company. But honestly, it's as long as we're making money and the people are happy, we're doing good.
Yeah, that's I like that hard number. The obviously profit. That's a hard like we could look at that, right? And you got some soft ones in there.
Right.
I like the autonomy too of your leadership, and you say, hey, you group, you know what's good for your team, and let's let you develop the areas to measure success. How about at M&M, Carl? What area? How are you measuring success? What are some of those areas that you could share with our group today?
Well, I'm going to say before the E2, I had the ability to track every job by hours quoted versus hours charged, and as well as the buyouts and the services. That's one of the things I'm trying to get back to, as well as, a monthly graph that we posted out on the shop floor that said, these tools were shipped this month. Here were the number of hours quoted in each phase code, be it EDM or electrode design or rough machining. And here's how we did on it, whether we were over or under, and, a little bit over under. In different departments, somebody may decide to high-speed this instead of burn it, or ship it out for an outside wire versus going into ours just because of constraints. But it was all there as a graph. With our group of 3 shops now, and Wisconsin Tool Works is an organization that was founded to be the parent company of all 3. I don't see as much of the profit and loss statement. I think it's something that's got to start getting shared again down the road. But as of yet, it's not being. We just get told if we're not doing as well as we should.
Okay. Well, that could be one of the challenges, and I know you mentioned looking at your daily graph and whatnot, and bringing that into a virtual environment. I know we struggle with that, like things that were in the office that you either have to figure out a way to do them, replicate them, or whatnot. I want to go back to a comment you made in the video too. Which I found very curious. You talked about employees championing their own training, I think is how the word you said. What does that look like during COVID? Have you been able to maintain that employee ownership of training?
For the most part. Yeah, I'm going to say yes, with the exception of social distancing.
Of course, yeah. All the COVID requirements, as we like to say,
exactly.
or protocols, the COVID protocols.
So I probably don't have as much of 2 guys leaning in over a mold and fitting it off as I used to. But yes, and I've had people look for training. I have people, I don't want to do this right now. It's been a problem for us. We've had very good adherence to the metrics or the requirements we set down for social distancing, masking, etc. on the workplace. Every place that we've had an issue has been outside of workplace.
Okay.
That's good.
And it's, how do you change somebody's attitude outside of that?
Yeah, you only control a certain part of it.
It's trivia night, and by God, I'm going to go to trivia night.
I will not be denied, right? Yeah, got it. Great. Well, thank you for sharing those success measurements, guys.
All right, so here's another one from the video that we didn't show. Maybe you have some updates, or maybe your strategies changed because of COVID the past 9 months. But let's start with you, Tim. How do you stay competitive? Or another way to look at it is, how do you set yourself up to take advantage of new business opportunities that come along, which obviously Cavalier has done, but talk about that a little bit.
That, Christina, is the key during COVID, because the new business opportunities aren't as easy to discover as they were in the virtual world, or before the virtual world, when in the real world we were chasing silos and meeting people at trade shows and other networking opportunities. Now it's done virtually, and we've as you mentioned earlier, we are extensive in the in our marketing campaign, and specifically our digital marketing campaign. It's something that was we started long before COVID came along. In 2016, we launched it initially. It was an epic failure. We had no idea what we were doing, and we crashed and burned. And it took a couple of years to resurrect ourselves and realize that we need some outside help on that. So we're working with someone outside the company now who's been very active in keeping us in line and getting us out there. Our theory is twofold. We want two personas out there. Cavalier has to have a persona itself, and that's what I'll give a shout out to Gail Robertson and Gail now. She's been working really closely with us and helping us develop that. But our own team members, we're also encouraging our own team members to have their persona so that they've got, they can be tracked digitally as well as the company. It's not all the company, it's about the people there too.
I love that.
But we're looking for that, our digital presence to allow us to take opportunities. We're going to learn the virtual marketing through trade shows, virtual trade shows. We're up for that this year as well. But it's about seeking opportunity where it is, not waiting for the old school to come back.
Yeah.
How about you, Carl?
Well, I think we're right kind of in that same deal. We came up with a social media policy under our own old ownership group who wanted us to compare and benchmark ourselves to the other $4 to $5 million a year sales mold shops in the Midwest, Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota. And we've kind of scrapped that policy. We're now going after, we'd like to be a $10 million shop. So let's see what the $10 million shops are doing.
Striving,
And
yeah, like it.
as everything has come up with all of the online meetings, the idea of having to be able to go to the other person's shop is not as big of a player anymore. So let's go nationally and expand our background. So we're still right in the middle of developing what's going to be our direction for our Facebook page, what's going to be our direction for our LinkedIn page. How are we going to rewrite the company website as we need to and update it? Or should we add blogs? Should we add gallery photos? LinkedIn presence. We just tried a scenario where I created a generic RFQ sheet, as generic as I could, put it out on the LinkedIn site with a series of articles about quoting process, and all I want is a person's name and address and phone number, and they can download it for free. If it works for them, great. If it doesn't, maybe it sparks an idea on what will work for them as well. Because there's nothing as an estimator that I hate. Can you quote a 2-cavity mold? I think we want hot tips, and I'm not sure what we want for steel.
Go blind.
I'll tell you, both of these, Christine, if you don't mind. I mean, I love the kind of like the experimental nature that both of your organizations are going through. Tim, you guys saying we tried it, we failed. And thank goodness you didn't say, and that doesn't work. You realized that it was going to work. You just needed to bring in some other people. And I think, Carl, you're kind of in the same situation in the sense like you're stretching yourself. I heard someone describe it yesterday as you're reaching for higher branches. And so you're stretching kind of your capabilities and your comfort zone to look at other opportunities and look at that next level, that go from the 3 to 4 to the 10, or Tim, in your case, look beyond kind of the areas where you've been and start engaging employees that don't have to come to the shop and look around globally. I think that's encouraging. I can tell you from a media side, and we deal with manufacturing all the time, and working with manufacturers that are learning how to do those marketing, that's exciting stuff for us. And so congratulations on going down that path. I think that's fantastic.
And it's so positive to think, I mean, these are things, they seem like common sense, but you wonder, like COVID, either force that upon you, right? Like that's a really positive. It had Cavalier look at a whole new work model from home, and it's successful and you're growing. And it has M&M looking to expand because you don't have to limit yourself, because that traditional going to a shop or finding customers that way has been changed. Like that's a really positive outlook on something that has really disrupted us. That's the first time I've heard it framed that way. And I find that very exciting to look at that way, and how social media can play into that, can actually help establish your brand in a different way.
Sure. And not just social, but being part of the environment and being part of the marketplace. I mean, Tim talked about taking advantage of different virtual events or events in general, being part of the markets. I mean, I think the most successful companies that figure this out, they figure out that you have to be part of the community. And then you figure out within your budget and within your constraints and what your corporate culture is, how to be part of that. But, social media is a big part of that, but there's also, other ways to do that. So kudos to you guys. I do want to stay in the COVID piece, because you can't have a conversation in today without talking about COVID. And we can go down the path of, and Carl, you talked a little bit about it. I'm sure Tim, you even mentioned it, like, this group hasn't come back and we're social distanced and masks and whatnot. But maybe give a couple thoughts on things that are going on during the COVID season, we'll call it, the COVID season. What do you think is going to stick, and what do you think is going to go away? Maybe I'll start with you, Tim, and then I'll go on to Carl. What do you think is going to stick from the COVID season? What do you think will go away in the post, we'll call it the vaccinated COVID season?
Well, first of all, I hope there is a post-COVID season. It doesn't seem to be letting up with the new variants that they talk about, and the third wave that's coming. I don't actually see that as something that's happening in the near future. So we're planning for the long haul. We expect the protocols that we put into place, and we put some pretty severe protocols here at Cavalier. We're very careful about our team members, and they all come in through one door. There's someone who asks them the questions every day that they have to answer, takes their temperature. We encourage social behavior when you're outside of the building, because you're putting your fellow workers at risk by doing that. What's going to stick around? Digital media, virtual trade shows, Teams meetings. In the first Teams meeting, all I could see was the Brady Bunch. Today I sleep and I see Teams meetings in my sleep. my pattern of people across my eyebrow, my eyelids there. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that doesn't change. There won't be a normal anymore. It's going to be a new normal, and I know we talk about that, but am I sure what it looks like? I don't know, but we're preparing for all the possibilities so that we're in a good position to take advantage of it.
Awesome, great, thanks for that, Carl. How about you? Any COVID scenarios that you think are going to stick around for a while?
I think you're still going to see the social distancing and the masking be very prevalent. I think in the U.S. we shot ourselves in the foot because we weren't really into the masking the way a lot of companies in the Eastern, the Asian Rim were wearing a mask because of air quality was something that happened all the time, and it was just so much here. Dearly love to have that unpoliticized as it was at the end of last year. I think you're going to see a lot more electronic meetings, back and forth, collaboration via electronics. I guess I've always kind of used, whether it was WebEx or TeamViewer. Now we're getting into Teams with our software. Quick collaborations, especially in the estimating. If the quote request comes in asking for 2 slides and I see you can't make it without 3, I'll usually try and fire something up with the requester and point out what I'm seeing and make sure that he didn't forget to tell me, oh, that hole goes away, or that yes, it does need 3. I'm glad you caught that and list that. And let me.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with you, Carl. That and same with you, Tim. I think the collaboration tools that have frankly probably all been on our systems for a long time, whether you use Microsoft or whatever, Google. I mean, those collaboration tools have all been there. We just were forced to kind of get comfortable with them. And I think we're finding we're actually a little bit more collaborative than maybe we should. Carl's example, I mean, we do the same thing. I mean,
Yep.
I have a question, fire just a quick note over to Christina, pop into a quick video chat, and it's done. The old days were, 17 emails later, and we still don't know what the heck we're talking about. So it just makes it a little bit easier. So
I agree with that.
so anyway, that was my last question, Christina.
Yeah,
so I wanted to get their opinion.
I can't believe how quickly this went, you gentlemen. So while I have you, I have one more question with kind of that in mind. Kind of set the stage for this last one. In your opinion, we'll start with you, Carl. With all the changes, I guess from COVID related and just technology in general, and going from an art to a science to a process, who do you think the mold builder of the future is? What are the traits? What are the qualities? What's the skill set? Maybe what are we even going to call them in the future? Give me your take.
Boy, good question, and I'm not even sure what I'd call them in the future, but they're going to be a technician of some type. You've got to have the computer literacy. You've got to have the enough presentation skills to want to get on and go face to face with somebody over some type of a link-up software. And you've got to have the math background.
I like the word technician. I do hear that one a lot. How about you,
I like
Tim?
just the basic math. Like, hey, you just have math. Like, it's not fancy. It's math.
It's math.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to take off what Carl said, in just a single generation of mold making, we've gone almost from an artist, the guy who took a block of steel and got rid of the bad part and ended up with a sculpture. And he truly was an artist, and the mold maker that was his job. And we've morphed now into where machinists are now the key guys, and it's all done on the tube. There's no more Remwood in the back of your pickup truck going over to styling and putting a radius gauge on to make sure it fits. It's all done virtually. So we still haven't changed. We're still taking away metal to make a mold. I think the next big leap will be additive, and I think you're going to see some cool things coming up in the future. Can you imagine a core in the cavity that you could see through, because it's a lattice work of support structure? It's not solid. The geniuses and the people that think out of the box,
They're working on it. Yep.
technicians, they're the ones that are going to lead the way in the future. We're going to need the brightest and the smartest and the people that think outside the box. They're what's going to perpetuate it. But as long as there's plastic, there's going to be mold making.
I agree. Well, that about does it, gentlemen. I want to thank you, Carl and Tim, and to all of you watching, I want to thank you for your time and participation. And don't forget to check out IMTS Spark for our final session in our What's New and What Works in Mold Manufacturing series. And this one is actually related to Gail, who does Cavaliers marketing on social. It is our coffee chat on marketing, social media, and mold making. And that is next Monday, March 8th. At 9 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Eastern time. So join us for that. There's a lot of good tips. And as you just heard from these gentlemen, it's critical. You got to get on board with it. It's a new way to help build your brand. So again, thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Ryan, good to see you. And remember, everybody out there, for everything mold making, visit moldmakingtechnology.com. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye, everybody.